Hi everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I'm Peter, and I'm joined as always with the Professor himself, Tim.
Hello, thank you. It's a pleasure being here as always. A little bit of an apology. I'm a little bit under the weather, so apologize if I'm a little sniffly today's episode. Luckily, I have Nurse Peter here to give inject me with 2 cc's of the movies we're watching today.
I won't be
So
injecting you with anything, Timothy.
okay,
I mean,
we'll
don't,
see.
don't get me wrong, I'm sure that would wake you up, but I'm injecting nothing.
I wonder if anyone's ever loved a movie so much they've taken like the raw film, like liquidated it and just injected it into themselves.
Sounds like a good way to die.
Yeah, probably.
I can't imagine that injecting melted film into your veins is in any way going to, improve your life. I imagine it will just kill you within a couple of minutes, but that's my guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
People can tell me otherwise.
I'm the
Now,
wait and see kind of guy. So
well, this is Screams After Midnight. We talk about horror movies, and this episode we are going to be talking about two films. We're going to do a double feature, and the double feature is very lopsided in terms of quality. So we're going to be talking about, and the reason we're talking about these is obvious, and we're going to be talking about the Blair Witch Project and Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Now, obviously, we are talking about these because Blair Witch, as in the new film from Adam Wingard, is coming out next month. Actually, it's still next month. Because
yeah,
this will go up on the 31st of August, so it's still next month.
yeah.
Um, so
So
that's why we're talking about this, because the new one's coming out, and we like to go back and do all the past movies in a franchise before the new one comes
well,
out.
I mean, like's a strong word, but we do it.
We do it. We like to
Yeah,
be comprehensive and
yeah.
do it. And so yeah, Blair Witch and Blair Witch 2. Although I can't really call it Blair Witch because the new one's called Blair Witch, and that's just going to make things confusing. So you have to say
Yeah.
Project now. You have to say Blair Witch Project. So we're going to talk about these. We're going to start with the first one, obviously, and we are not going to have a spoiler section, or sorry, a spoiler-free section. We're just going to go straight into full spoilers without worrying about it. Mainly because it's weird if you're like if you're going to skip to the second half to listen to the spoiler-free section of the second movie.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that. So just spoilers all the way for both movies.
I would hate to meet the person that watched Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, but not Blair Witch Project, but still is afraid of spoilers.
I'd hate to meet them too. And if you've
Yeah.
seen the first one but not the second one, you shouldn't care about the spoilers because
Yeah.
yeah, the quality is not something you should care about.
Tell you
So
that right now.
with that said, we're going to dive into the first movie. The Blair Witch Project came out in 1999. It's directed by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sánchez. And
Okay.
this film became infamous because they were the first to use viral marketing in such a big way. They they promoted it as if it was real, as if someone had actually found this footage.
That's actually the first question I wanted to ask you was when
Okay.
this came out, did you think this was real?
Well, a bit of personal background on me to answer that question. This
Oh
is the
boy,
first.
here we go.
This is the first time I've watched this in 14 years.
Oh, okay.
This movie came out when I was 10 years old,
Mhm,
and I watched it maybe a year later, 2 years later, so 14,
mhm.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't remember what I thought. And that it's been so long. Like I was a kid, I can't remember.
I I I was young as well. I was a little older than I think I was like 12, 13 when it came out. And I do remember specifically thinking it was real, but I forget if it was before or after I actually saw the movie. But I just do remember, like, I've- on like some entertainment show, like Hollywood Tonight or something, they had like the actors from the film, and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute."
Now, I don't think I did think it was real, but only because I watched it when it came to like cable.
Yeah,
So it'd been like 6 months to a year, and by that point, the myth about it was kind of it unwrapped, and
yeah.
we were aware of it a bit more. So I think that was why I knew it wasn't real. But so that's the background of how I first saw the Blair Witch Project, way back when. Now, this film, before we even talk about the quality of the film, it does have a lot to answer for. Because
Yeah.
as much as it didn't properly, like the boom didn't properly start until Paranormal Activity came along and shot it in the arm with 10 cc's, as Tim alluded to earlier. We do have like a dozen found footage movies probably coming
Yeah.
out every single year,
Mhm.
and all of it's probably to blame the Blair Witch Project. Now, the Blair Witch Project is not the first movie with this idea.
Mhm.
You can go all the way back to Cannibal Holocaust, which has a lot of found footage ideas in it.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's not the first one to do it. It's the first one to promote it in such a way, and it's the first one to really hit in a mass scale like it did.
Mhm. I think it also kind of like develops a lot of the tropes that you see in like later movies too.
Oh yeah, that was one thing I thought as I was watching it is Blair Witch Project is a much better movie than most found footage movies that come out now.
Yeah.
But you can clearly see all of the tropes that they are using from this. And it wasn't a trope when they did it, it's just now
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, now we're doing this because Blair Witch
And
did it.
and that's something interesting that I was going to ask you about. Like, can we like fairly criticize this movie for these kind of things that you know like isn't there, I think there's a phrase or something like blaming the sins of the child on the father or something like that, you know what I mean? But like, can we like chastise this movie for some of these things that the cinematic crimes it commits later on
I,
from its like
I don't think you can. I think there's lots of other things to praise in the movie, and I think you don't criticize the things that later became problems, but you don't necessarily like reward it for them either. Like they're there for reasons, but the reasons why the movie succeeds is probably a lot of other things, and maybe the things that other movies do copy from this later they don't do as well. So maybe that's where
yeah.
we say, okay, this is clearly how it should be done. And I think a big part of this is obviously the directors for this had this idea. They had this idea of three young people get into the woods, try to like make a documentary about this myth, this legend, the Blair Witch, and creepy shit starts happening, and they go missing, and we're watching these tapes as if we found them later. This was probably quite a big idea for them at the time when they thought of this. Like, oh, that sounds great. Whereas
Yeah.
now we're like, oh, found footage again. Here we go. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Like, see if these all exist in the same universe. Like, they're finding tapes constantly, like
Yeah.
of people who have died and like went missing, like all the goddamn time.
Yeah.
As far as tropes that I'll complain about, the only one that really irks me that I'm going to get to is actually the ending. Although I'm not necessarily going to complain about the way this movie does it, I'm going to complain about how it's used afterwards.
Okay.
Because it's my biggest complaint with found footage movies, and we'll get there. So let's work through the movie. Let's talk about what happens in it and whatever crops up as we go along.
Okay.
So we're introduced to the three main characters, Heather, Josh, and Mike. It's rare that I remember all the characters in a movie after watching it, but they yell each other's names so many goddamn times in this movie, and they're the only three characters that it's sunk in. So they're making this documentary. Heather's the sort of driving force. It's her. She's the auteur here, if you will. She's the one who wants to make this. She's passionate about it. And she's got her friend Josh helping her, and they've got this other guy Mike who isn't a close friend, but is, they've got him because he knows how to record sound, and he's got the equipment out of wherever he gets equipment from.
Yeah.
One point I will make actually about this is that there's small things that I appreciated more this time. Because keep in mind, the last time I watched this, I was like 11 or something like that. Since then, not only am I older and just smarter, possibly open for debate, but I would argue I'm smarter. I've also like been trained. I went to college and university for television and filmmaking. Like I learned to use TV equipment and filmmaking equipment. This is something I'm, I don't. If I say I'm skilled in it, I sound like I'm being arrogant about it. I just mean like I am trained. Like I know how to use it, right?
Yeah.
And so them like talking about their equipment and like the things going wrong with it, or Like just when he's talking about measuring the distance in meters because that's what's on the camera lens rather than the feet and things like that.
Yeah.
Like I understood all of it. Or at one point when she says, "Oh, I fumbled some of my lines there," when she's doing like the presenting sort of side of it, and she says, "Oh, well, I recorded it all on its own, so maybe I can edit it together." Like I understood all of the all the little tricks they were trying to use and the filmmaking. I guess what I'm saying is I related more to the characters this time than I did
Okay.
back when.
Interesting. That's cool. I can see that.
Yeah,
It didn't do much for me. Like it didn't hurt it, but it didn't.
yeah.
But I understand that though. Like any time, a character in a movie like references like a comic book I read or something. Yeah,
Or eats pizza.
yeah, sure. Yeah, you do get like a little jolt of like they're just like me. Like a. But yeah, I got you though.
Yeah. So they're making this documentary about the Blair Witch, and they go around town and interview a bunch of people, or they go to the town that the Blair Witch is meant to be near this town, next to this town in the woods.
Yeah.
Buskerville, I can't remember.
Somewhere in Maryland.
Yeah, somewhere in Maryland. I can't remember. I remember the B.
Yeah.
And they interview various people and ask them about this legend and this, have you heard of this legend? And they all give their own things that they've heard about it. And
Yeah.
some of this is sort of relevant for later. So, someone talks about how this person was killing kids in their house, and they were making like he'd take them out of the basement in groups of two, and he'd make one face the corner while he kills the other one because he didn't want to be watched and things like that. And how the Blair Witch was maybe causing him to do this. Someone else talked about people going missing in the woods. Someone else talked about a couple of like hikers finding like these dead bodies in the shape of a pentagram. Just all these bits of backstory and stuff.
Yeah, this was actually some of the most interesting stuff to me. I really liked the beginning. I really like documentaries in general, especially stuff about weird, creepy stuff, ghosts and true crime and monsters, legends, all that kind of stuff. So this like kind of hit home for me. And yeah, I mean, I just even if like no creepy stuff happened, I actually did like hearing about the legend. I was like, oh, it's kind of a cool legend. And as it kind of goes further along, I do kind of like seeing the differences between when they're doing the documentary, like whenever Heather like appears on camera and she kind of like straightens up, kind of speaks like differently, as opposed to when they're kind of just hanging out, being friends and stuff, which I thought was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it feels very authentic, and I think that's a big thing the movie's got going for it, is they feel like real people try to make a real thing. And I like how there's two cameras. I like how the one they actually shoot the documentary on is black and white, but the colour one's the one that she just kind of has on all the time. And they even make it a point that the other characters get annoyed at her when shit starts going down, that she's still filming stuff. It's like stop, we're in trouble, stop filming. Which is weird, because at the time it was okay, right, we're going to justify her filming stuff still because she's just this type of character who would always want to document what's going on. The problem is with found footage since then is that every single found footage movie has to have this character to justify why they're still filming.
Yeah.
So that's something that's definitely become a trope. But here it's just this was
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like always a bad thing if there is like a legitimate reason for it, and there is like a very it like you said, it feels authentic. Like you can see this kind of person doing it. This person who's so wrapped up in this documentary and telling her story. No matter what's happening, there is definitely a reason for it. But yeah, there's so many other movies that just have done it that it's just been so pointless.
Yeah, but it works well enough here. One thing I will say actually before we go on is, like I knew this was like a ropey looking movie, like intentionally like shot on cheap stuff, and it looked really rough, like from memory. But I watched the Blu-ray of this, the Blu-ray in 1080p, and I like 5 seconds into it, I went, what was the point of putting this on a Blu-ray? Because it looks like shit. And it's meant to, like, that's not a criticism. In fact, I think it looking like shit actually adds a lot to the atmosphere of the movie.
Yeah, because it looks like a home video or something. Like
it really feels like some old VHS tape that you found that looks like shit.
Yeah.
And I think taking that away would ruin it, and it's maybe something that does affect a lot of modern found footage movies, even though it's not like most found footage movies now look really clean because they're shot in better cameras, and it's not even unrealistic because you can buy cameras for a couple of $1,000s that would look this
Yeah.
good. So it's actually completely believable and completely authentic. It's just it doesn't have the same tone to it. The one thing that does get unrealistic though with the modern found footage movies, and even this one to an extent in some cases, although not as much, is the sound. The sound
Okay.
would be nowhere near as good as this had it just been the camera recording sound. And especially, I remember even in Creep, which I really liked, there was moments where characters were far away from the camera, and the sound
Yeah.
still was like clear. And I'm like, no, it would sound like absolute shite if they were that far away. If
Yeah.
you could even make it out at all, So, like that's where it kind of trips up. But the point I'm making is that even though technically it makes it a bit rougher to start with, once you get
Yeah.
into it, it actually adds a lot to the because even when this came out, it's set in 1994. Like they were meant to have recorded this in 1994,
Mhm.
so it adds a lot to it that it looks like shit. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Adds a lot to the tone and the mood.
Yeah, it definitely works for it. It was weird rewatching it. I was also kind of surprised. Like I was like, oh wow, like just yeah, like stuff really doesn't look like this anymore. Like even if you watch something from '94, obviously it would look better. But it looks like something from America's Funniest Home Videos or something like that
Yeah,
kind of home video quality. But yeah, like you said, like obviously that's the point. It works for it in this case.
yeah. My only complaint actually is that when this came out in the theaters. Now, obviously, I'd never seen it in the theaters because of my age. But when this came out in the theaters, the black and white camera was actually a different ratio to the color camera. So it switched. Whenever it went to the black and white camera, it went to 166, so it was a bit wider. So I'm a little disappointed that all the home versions, at least to my knowledge, that are out now, don't have this. It just stays in 4:3 the whole time. And I feel like, given that stuff like The Dark Knight changes aspect ratio and other movies do it, I feel like, why not just let that do it too? So I'm a little disappointed the home version doesn't keep that, but it's not a big deal.
I'm a little disappointed. I just had to listen to that.
Oh, go fuck yourself, Tim. Go fuck yourself. So they get to the woods after they've interviewed people and they set up this stuff. Which, by the way, all this interview stuff at the start meant a lot more to me the second time through because I was remembering things that happened later. I'm like, oh wait, that's kind of like that. Oh, and that's kind of like it actually seeds a lot of the stuff that happens later on. But they go into the woods and they do some recording. They pitch their tent and nothing really happens the first night. And the theory later on is because they couldn't light a fire, but nothing happens the first night. And then the second day, they kind of get lost looking for this cemetery they're trying to find. And then as the movie goes on, they get more lost and more lost, and then they just flat out can't find their way back to the car. And then
Yeah.
eventually they lose the map, and it turns out Mike, threw it away because he thought that Heather and Josh couldn't read it anyway, and it wasn't helping. Um, and that's when eventually, and I know I'm rushing through this big portion of the movie, but I just kind of want to sum it up and then talk about the
Well,
standout moments. But
I'll be honest. I feel like this portion was kind of forgettable. Like I mean,
well,
I,
it is and it isn't. Like I feel like this is why I'm kind of just going through it all in one big chunk,
okay.
is because in terms of actual plot details or like events, there's not actually a whole lot to talk about. But at the same time, I feel like it's kind of necessary because I think what separates this and makes this actually work really well is that I think the acting is very good, and I think the way the tension's building with them bickering each other and slowly getting worse, especially how Mike seems like the antagonist, and then it kind of flips where Josh starts to go a bit more nuts,
Yeah.
and Mike seems more normal, and they kind of like I feel like the roller coaster of their emotions and how they fight and then don't stop fighting because they realize they're really fucked. Like I feel like all of that works really well, and I think that's why this section of the movie isn't. Cause I don't think it's boring. I think there is this constant eeriness to it where you realise that this isn't just them being lost. Because we get to that point where they say, right, we're just going to keep going south. Eventually, we have to come to something because the area is not that huge, and they end up like coming back to the same place, which is I think that's the moment where it's official. Right, supernatural shit's going on. Like
Yeah.
You know, like this isn't physically possible. And then whatever's happening, it's leaving like things outside, like the rocks outside their tent, or then the sort of
Stick
the stick
people.
thing, yeah. Because eventually, when Josh disappears, which I actually thought was done really well, because he kind of just like, they actually let that happen off camera, which I really like. Like, found footage movies so often these days will find an excuse to have the camera on for everything that's worth noting. But there's a few times in this where something will legit happen when the camera's off, and then it comes back on, and like, Heather will tell us this shit happened.
Yeah.
But highlights during this portion of the movie, when in the tent at night and the sounds are coming from the outside, really creepy, really good.
Is that the wait? Is that the first time, or is that the time when they run from the tents?
Well, it happens both.
Or is that the okay?
Like the first time they hear the noises, and that's kind of it.
Okay.
And then the second time, I think they hear more noises, and then they maybe hear a baby, or the baby might be later. That might be the third night. I can't remember exactly how many nights there are, but it builds.
It kind of The movie in a whole, I feel like, kind of blends together a little bit. Like how it's a decent number of nights that this takes place through, but
it's 4 or 5.
Yeah, but I couldn't tell you like which, like a lot of what happens when. I don't know. I feel like it ends up just kind of blending into this.
I can tell you everything that happened after Josh disappeared. Like, I feel like that's the big turning point. And he's obviously targeted. Like, I guess one of the things we need to talk about is what we think's actually kind of going on here to an extent, because Josh is targeted because his stuff's the stuff, like, because when they leave the tent that night when they run out and they can't go back until morning, it's only Josh's stuff that's been like attacked, and it's got goo on it or whatever. And then he sort of acts a little bit crazier, and then he just disappears in the middle of the night when they're asleep, and the next morning he's gone. So then we talk about the ending, when they run out to the house. They find this house because they hear Josh in the middle of the night, like shouting or screaming or whatever, and they run out after him, and they get to this abandoned building, this little house, and they start searching through it for Josh. And of course, the movie ends. Mike goes quiet. Mike gets separated after he's like running around looking for Josh. And then we're stuck with Heather, who then falls down into the basement and sees Mike standing in the corner, looking at the wall. And then she falls and seemingly dies, and the camera falls, and that's the end of the movie. I'll get to my complaint, not so much about that, but about what it spawned in a minute. But so earlier on in the movie, the person telling the story about the kids being killed said that they took out of the basement in twos, and one was told to look in the corner while the other one was killed. So I'm thinking the Blair Witch has taken Josh. She's possessed Josh, she's manipulating Josh, and Josh is the one killing him here.
Okay.
Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I never really thought about it that hard.
What did you think about?
I was like, oh, someone's in the corner, and so they're gonna die. I never really thought about who was doing it.
Oh God. But now that I've told you that, and I've given you the evidence as to why I think that.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, that probably seems the most plausible. I guess like the options would be probably like what that some type of ghost entity itself, like the Blair Witch, or maybe like I don't know, one of the guys like from town, or one of those fishermen or something that they saw earlier. But yeah, I feel like Josh would probably be the most logical conclusion.
I feel like that's what the ending is.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it is, and I think it works really well. It's really creepy. I think especially when I watched it this second time, remembering how it kind of roughly ends, and then hearing all those stories at the start, like, I pieced it all sort of together, and I had this in my head as I was going. Because like I say, I've not seen this in 14 years. I remembered basically the ending and a lot of screaming in the woods. That was all I really remembered of this movie. But no, that's my interpretation of the ending. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't know. It's weird. Like, I legitimately didn't really think too much about it. I was just kind of like, oh, he's in the corner because he's gonna die, and then I guess
What
I
does that
think
even?
I
What does that even mean though? Tim, he's in the corner, so he's going to die.
yeah, because like the legend said earlier, the
Okay,
guys
right.
said, but and I don't know. I guess I thought maybe it was just the actual witch or something, and that maybe Josh had been killed earlier. She was like manipulating his voice, and I didn't think about it too deeply, but now that you bring it up, though, that does sound very plausible.
So what we're saying here is that I just schooled the professor. Is that what we're saying?
No, I would never say that.
No, that's what just happened. The professor, and that's air quotes for the audio listeners that are happening right now, just got schooled.
Uh,
Schooled.
you're lucky I'm
Um,
medicated right now.
what
Um,
what else you want to talk about in this movie, Tim?
uh, you know, I feel like you sound like you're a little more positive on it than me.
I am. I will say I liked it more this time than I did when I first saw it.
See, I'm a little bit of the opposite because I think I remember liking it more. And then when I was rewatching it, there's definitely aspects of it I like. I like the idea. Um, Basic story idea I think is pretty good. It's a creepy legend. It's a nice ending, and I think just the middle just really gets me. I find the characters very annoying. All the screaming just really got to me after a while. Like like eventually I just want to be like, all right, shut up. Like I it was annoying me that they were all like so mad at each other. I was like, just work together, just like you know. And I understand that that's probably how it would happen in real life. You'd probably get frustrated, and especially if there is paranormal influence that's affecting one person or maybe multiple people. Who knows? But but it still didn't change the fact that it annoyed me as I was watching it.
Okay. Um, that's fair, I guess. I didn't really have that problem as much. I think I I don't know. I think the tone of it like just does a lot for me. Like, and I feel like the characters. Yeah, I mean, there is movies where like characters might annoy me to an extent where it takes me out of it, but
Yeah,
it felt authentic, so it didn't bother me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like had it felt like forced or like why the fuck is she
or
screaming or whatever.
yeah, like over the top or something.
Yeah, but it felt like I got why they were screaming when they were screaming. It made sense.
Yeah,
Um, I think what I like about this though, especially going back to it now, and having experienced umpteen found footage movies in the last like few years, is I do like. I mean, we spoke about how shitty it looks and how, but I
yeah,
think in addition to this the shitty video, also like how rough and tumble the whole thing is. You know, it like there's something about this that just feels a little bit edgier than modern found footage movies. They all feel too clean. Now,
Well, sorry. If I may interrupt you for a second.
oh, go on.
This might be what you're getting at too. But like, I think maybe the difference between this and a lot of modern found footage movies is this actually does feel like a found footage movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go. That's actually a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel overly produced, and I do believe. I was scrolling through IMDb's trivia section for this earlier, so I have no idea how accurate that is, but given that there's two cameras and you see them pointing at each other, it makes sense that a lot of it was shot by the actors themselves.
Yeah.
And I think there's truth to that. Whereas I don't actually believe that in most modern found footage movies. I feel like whoever's actually holding the camera is a camera operator,
Oh yeah.
and like they'll have the other actor like standing behind them, doing the voice or whatever.
Yeah.
But like them shooting it themselves. I also was reading like, a lot of they never got a script. A lot of the dialogue's almost all improv.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Because the like the I think on IMDb it said they got like 30 pages of treatment to tell them roughly what the movie was about. But a couple of things, they didn't tell them exactly what the events were going to be. Stuff like when the tent starts like shaking,
Mhm.
like they didn't tell the actors were going to do that,
Oh wow.
and stuff like that. Also, they made the actors believe that the Blair Witch legend was real, they knew they were just making a movie. They didn't think what they were doing was real, but they believed the legend was based on a real thing. But whereas in actual fact, every single part of it was made up, like for the movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
So there's a lot of like even the way they did it feels like a very like natural way. Like what they basically did was get 3 actors who could improv and stay in character.
Yeah.
And for 8 days they tormented them in the woods.
Oh,
so
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like yeah, like you mentioned earlier, like the acting is good and it does feel authentic, so it's not really surprising. So it's cool. I feel like that's definitely the way you'd want to do it with this type of movie.
Yeah. What I also like about it is I think the legend of the Blair Witch herself feels like proper evil. Like, it's one of these things where, like, had we seen a shot at the end of some fully haired woman, like, floating around, it would have killed the entire thing. But because it takes the what you don't see approach, where you just see the effects of what's going on, but never exactly what is going on, it makes it much scarier. And it makes the legend of Blair Witch much scarier. Because it feels like once you realise there's a supernatural force stopping them from getting out of the forest, you're just like, they're fucked. You don't even think for a second they've got a chance.
Yeah.
And it's scary. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's one of my biggest fears is getting lost.
In the forest?
No, just in general.
Well, I'm not concerned about it in like a city, because there's like street names. I can find my way about. I can ask for directions.
Yeah, I mean,
the forest at night though, like alone in the woods, like that's that's pretty scary.
Yeah, and there was like a moment too that I like. I think maybe when she's like trying to cross the log over the river or something, and she like says something like, "I know I've like crossed this log before." I once you kind of start to get that feeling that they are trapped in this kind of never-ending woods, or that that there's no way that they can get back to their car.
Also, there's a
moment.
There's a moment I want to point out early on in the film as well. See when they get to the cemetery, which is before anything bad really starts happening. They got a little bit lost getting there, but they got there fine. It's all the stone formations and stuff. At one point, Heather knocks over, or one of them knocks over a couple of the stones, and Heather like puts them back. Like she makes a point of putting them back as if, let's put it back the way it was. And I'm just like, I'm kind of wondering, like, is that why stuff happens? Like, had that not happened, would they have just gotten out? No problem.
Yeah, definitely possible. I saw something that mentioned that. So I was looking at the Wikipedia page after I read it, and there was like some theory or some mention of that might have been the kind of inciting incident that might have disturbed the witch or whatever and kind of made them targets.
Yeah. So no, I have to say, actually, my opinion of it has risen. Mostly because I think I was too young to appreciate it, probably, at the time when I first saw it. So I actually like it a fair bit more now, which is nice. It's nice to say that. It's funny, actually, I watched the movie for the first time last year, and we might cover this movie at some point, but I watched a movie last year called Willow Creek, which is also a found footage movie, and it's very similar to Blair Witch in that it's about a couple who are doing a documentary on Bigfoot, and it also ends with them getting out of the woods. Now, them getting out of the woods is much later in the film, but it's very similar in that they go around the town like interviewing people about Bigfoot, and then they eventually go into the woods, and creepy shit happens, and so on. That had one very good scene in it, but otherwise it was really bland. And watching Blair Witch, like, and just the difference in tone and the difference in feeling, like right from the start of Blair Witch, there's this uneasy feeling you're watching like someone's final days kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in Willow Creek, I'm like being cynical. I'm like, okay, here's the next found footage trope. Here's the next trope. Like, here's this thing setting up something. Oh, I wonder if that'll come into play later. Being super cynical. So,
I enjoy that movie, but it definitely has its issues. Admittedly, though, I do really like Bigfoot and Bobcat Goldthwait, uh, so I might have a little bit more of a
Yeah,
bias.
but Tim, fucking, who cares if you like Bigfoot? Like, they talk about Bigfoot. You don't see a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of
not.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, but I don't know. Well, it's like you said with your stupid movie rant where you're talking about how they're talking about the lenses and shit. You just sometimes, if they mention stuff you like, you just like it better.
Okay, okay. I like the scene in the tent. The scene in the tent in that movie is good, but the ending was
Yeah.
atrocious. Anyway, uh, that's the Blair Witch Project. Very good. Had a big lasting impression. It, at the time, was the most successful independent film of all time. It cost about $20,000 to make, and made hundreds of millions. Uh, Needless to say, it blew up. It was a big hit.
Mm.
So it's no surprise that the studio that bought it decided that they wanted to do a sequel.
Oof.
Which leads us to Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2.
Ay, ay, ay.
And I have to say, the movie actually opens with a bit of text saying that this is a fictionalized version of events that happened after the Blair Witch movie came out. So it's set in a world where the first movie
Yeah.
was a movie, and the movie's about fans of that movie. So get that around your head first, right?
Yeah, I don't want to sound dumb, but like I had to pause it there and like look at that for like a minute or so just to try to make sense. But like, all right, so wait, they're saying that this is a fake movie based on real events that happened about people in the fake movie or some shit. I was like, what? Why even have this at the beginning?
Well, they have to have this. Go on, Tim, how many movies or sequels do you go and see where the first movie is a movie that came out? Like, the characters in this movie have seen the first movie. How often does that happen? It's weird, right? It's like not a,
Four
name them.
later.
Exactly. Shut the fuck up. Right. So yes, they needed the text. They maybe didn't word it the best way they could have,
Yeah.
but they needed text to just let us know, because this would have been really weird. Like if this movie had started and they're all talking about the Blair Witch Project, I'm like, wait, what? What's going on? But after that, it's got news footage talking about how much of a success the Blair Witch Project was. Well, in fact, maybe you don't need the text. Maybe this is enough
Yeah.
to show all this, because you see like a clip of Ebert talking about it, and you see clips of Conan O'Brien, like you see a bunch of like, people, actual clips of people on TV talking about the movie, and that's how it starts.
So
However,
this made me really nostalgic for like watching like
uh,
TV in the late 90s,
now,
early 2000s.
I don't have a problem with any of this. This was fine. If anything, at this point, if I was watching this for the first time, which is not, I seen this, soon after it came out. But if I was watching this for the first time, at this point, I would have thought, "Oh, this is kind of cool. They're doing like a different type of like play
Yeah.
on like the found footage or whatever. Like this is going to be like news clips to start with, and then they're going to continue this theme of like fandom and like
Yeah.
Then the news clips end, and we go to a sweeping, camera shot of like the forest as Marilyn Manson music plays, as opening titles like burn onto the screen, and it's like such and such presents a blah 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 film, and then like so the Marilyn Manson music's playing as Blair Witch 2 comes on the screen, and all I'm thinking is like, you have none of the atmosphere and none of the tone. This instantly feels like a movie from the 90s, and amazingly it's not. It's from 2000.
Yeah.
But it
But
feels,
it
even at the time, it felt so dated. This feels dated for the time it came out.
it was super 90s, and I mean my memory may be a little shitty, but I'm pretty positive that I saw this in theaters, and which is like insane because this is like the definition of like straight to DVD sequel.
Mm-hmm.
There's like nothing about this that felt like it should have premiered on like Sci-Fi or something, you know.
Yeah, it's really bad. So the premise of this one is that a guy writing a book and his wife who's pregnant who he's writing a book about the mass like hysteria influence of things like something like Blair Witch, where everyone works up into a frenzy over something because of like fear or whatever. So he's doing that. That's why he's coming along, and they're going with a tour guide to the site of where the Blair Witch was filmed, essentially, because they want to like study or whatever. They're joined by. They've also got this Wiccan character with them who believes she's a witch, but she's a good witch. She thinks that all this like media, like witches are evil stuff's like bad. Like that's like racist to her kind because she's a witch and they're good and they believe in nature. And then we've got a goth character named Kim, and
that's felt like super like 90s like stereotypes.
They're all super 90s stereotypes. Especially since the tour guide guy is like selling stuff on eBay, which that's actually what threw me more than anything else. Is that he mentions he sells stuff on eBay. I'm like, eBay existed when this movie came out? What? Like, none of the characters in this movie have mobile phones, and eBay exists. I just want to.
Going back to kind of the beginning and when they're like talking about the movie and stuff, like, man, like I felt like this is like super like masturbatory. Like, did you get a sense that like a lot of it was just trying to like, I don't know if any of these people that made this were people that were involved with the first one, but it seemed like they were like really like fucking trying to hammer home like, hey, the first one was really good, huh? What a sensation! Like, oh man, it's a cultural phenomenon, like sweeping the nation, kind of like. It's like, and I don't know, maybe it was back then. I don't remember, but definitely looking at it now, it's like kind of.
I can tell you the director had nothing. Well, I don't know if he had nothing to do with the first one, but it's a different director.
Okay.
Joe Berlinger. Or Berlinger probably, but he's the director of this. He did not direct the first one. The two directors of the first one have credits because the characters are based on characters they created. But well, debatable, I suppose. They're mentioned. So they're going out to spend the night in the site of the Blair Witch. And they go out and they get drunk, do a lot of drugs, which is another thing that really weirded me. Like, all the characters are just complete, like, they're all obsessed with just being intoxicated in any way possible, like, the whole time. It's weird. But, so they go out and they do that, and they wake up the next day and they've got, like, 4 hours missing. Like, they blacked out for 4 hours and they don't remember a goddamn thing. And the pregnant woman appears to have had some kind of miscarriage, and all of the camera equipment's been destroyed, but the tapes are in the location where the original tapes from the first movie were supposedly found. So they go to the hospital, deal with the pregnant woman, like make sure she's okay, and apparently she is. But what I want to point out now before we move on with the plot is that up until this point we've been intercutting with these police interview scenes, which... First of all, the sheriff in this movie is like the most cartoony like sheriff, like movie sheriff, you know?
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. I don't even know like how to describe it. Yeah, I guess cartoony is a good way of putting it. Yeah, he looks like a cartoon. He sounds like a cartoon. He sounds like a weird like. Kind of like southern, like, hey now, watch out, boy, like witchcraft we got going on here.
Yeah,
it's like...
but at the same time, the acting is bad enough that he's even failing at being a proper cartoony sheriff. It's weird. It's like so on over the top. But he's like interviewing like the tour guide guy, and right away, like all of this just feels like really generic, like. Like they're trying to do whatever they can to build like some sort of suspense or whatever, and it comes off feeling really phony. And the problem is that over the course of the movie, we start getting more of these scenes, but we get them with other characters. So by the time you're about halfway through the movie, there's at least 3 characters can't die, because these scenes are set afterwards. So you almost know exactly who's going to die and who's not by about halfway through the movie, just because based on who they're cutting to in the future. But I thought those really felt forced. They really felt like they interrupted what was going on. That's why I wanted to bring that up just now.
Yeah, it seemed very unnecessary. I don't know if they thought like, oh, like here's an easy way to make this movie seem more interesting or something, but it definitely did not work.
It didn't, but at the same time, I get why they did it on the basis of the ending, because the ending
Mm.
doesn't feel like as much of a twist if we've not been kind of following them in these interviews all the movie. You know what I mean? Like, see if they just
Okay.
went, see if the story just played out normally, and then they had the interview scenes all clumped together. A, it
Mhm.
would have been like really slow after like the build up, and then the
Mhm.
twist wouldn't have hit as hard. Well, not that it hits hard anyway. It feels really limp dicked, but whatever. Um, so yeah, so basically they've got the tapes and they get to the hospital and they're like, okay, let's go and look at what these tapes have got. So they go back to the tour guide guy's home, which the one thing I like about this movie is that his home is like this abandoned like factory
Is
or
it
warehouse.
is a broom factory? They said.
Was it a broom factory? There you go.
Yeah.
And it's got like a moat. He's got a bridge that gets onto his like front door.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, it's kind of stupid, but at the same time, I would love another movie set in this location.
Mhm.
I actually really like the location, but that's just I would like this to be like like if you've been watching Stranger Things, I would love this to be the kids like hideaway somewhere. Like they've found this building and they've made it their
That could
den
that
kind of
could be
thing.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, so they start looking at the tapes and like the 4 hours that they blacked out for is also missing from the tapes. It just jumps.
Mhm.
So dude starts looking through it and they all start trying to figure things out, and they've got like things carved in some parts of their body. They start having these weird memories of having sex and all sorts of things. And
Killing people.
yeah, and again, much like the first one, although in this time in a much more negative light, a lot of this just kind of blurs together
Yeah.
once they get back to this guy's house.
Mm.
It just feels like lots of weird shit just seems to happening. And I think the big problem with this, other than it just being shit, is, or one of the big reasons why it's shit, is that the plot just leads to characters acting weird randomly for no reason.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll, like also, I don't know if you felt this way too, but I felt it was kind of weird that these like characters even like kept hanging out because like they don't really have like a pre-existing relationship, you know? And
Yeah, yeah. Um,
and
it,
I felt like the stuff that was happening like wasn't enough to like I don't know form a bond or to really keep them together, you know?
I think, yeah, it would have probably have worked a little bit better had the group of characters been a group of friends who all knew each other.
Yeah.
Just on the basis that maybe once they all started suspecting each other was guilty of something, that maybe it would have, I don't know, meant something.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas up until like so basically the Wiccan girl like just kind of disappears randomly at one point. She just disappeared. I guess like Josh in the first movie. Although
Yeah.
she crops back up later in a closet dead, and they all start suspecting each other, and they start accusing each other of all sorts. And there's a we should also mention there's a scene where the goth girl goes out to get some beer at the store and
Yeah.
confronts people, and things happen, and who gives a shit because
There's
all
a-
of it's just
yeah.
kind of pointless. Um, so the real tipping point though comes to nearer later in the movie when they play the tapes backwards or some shit. It's like backwards plus something else, and they finally see footage of what happened during the
Yeah.
4 hours. And
See, like, well, sorry, like, just uh, real quick to interrupt. The tour guide or whatever, I feel like he was supposed to be like this big, like, like smart tech guy, and kind of like how you're talking about in the first one, where, they're talking about the camera equipment and stuff, and it felt like very like authentic. This is like the exact opposite, where like he had an explanation for like how he could like see stuff, but it felt like so like phony. Though like, oh well, like can you like show her face? He was like, yeah, let me just like you said, he's like yeah, like play it backwards, speed it up, and like do like this and this, and like and
yeah,
he's
yeah, it was bullshit.
and like it
especially
wasn't
since,
like he
especially
okay.
since it was on tape, and he's like,
Yeah,
he says he
it's
blows up the tape, and it's like it's bad enough in movies and TV shows when they blow up things and it's like perfect quality, but
yeah.
like you know what? At least with digital stuff, it works a little bit better. But tape's fuzzy as shit. Like once you blow up tape, it just looks like a mess of colors. Like you don't see
Yeah.
anything. Oh dear. Yeah, that happened. But yeah, so they look at the footage and basically they had an orgy, and the the pregnant woman, gets rid of the baby, and I don't know if it was on the tapes, but they seem to have been involved in killing you know, but it's the fact the thing that comes out of it though is the pregnant woman's the one that's done all of this. She
Yeah.
seems to have like made them all do this, and she seems to be in cahoots with the witch or whatever,
Yeah.
and then she hangs herself when they confront her, and then they all get arrested, which leads to the scenes of them sitting in the interview rooms. And then the big twist in the movie is that they replay the footage because they're claiming all this has happened, and that they're blaming it on all these supernatural things and whatever. And we see the footage, and the goth girl actually stabbed the checkout girl at the shop.
Yeah.
We didn't see that. We just see her stab her. Or we yeah, we didn't see her stab her, but in the footage she clearly just kills her. And then again we see the tour guide guy like killing the Wiccan girl, and we see husband dude like actually be the one that hangs his wife,
Yeah.
and it means nothing. Like, because it ends almost immediately after this. Like, it basically cuts to the husband's reaction, screaming, "This isn't possible. I didn't like.
Yeah.
That's not how it happened." And it's like, okay, twist, boom. You impressed us, I guess. No, like, what the fuck?
Uh, yeah, I'm not even sure where to unpack this because there's just so much that sucks about this movie. Yeah, like by then, like first of all, it's like you kind of already start to see what's going on, like towards the end. At least like by the time like when they start watching the tapes, and they're seeing them do all this stuff, like oh like that didn't happen, and then yeah, I think it is supposed to meant to be a bigger reveal or something at the end, but yeah, you just don't care, and
I think it's because
especially
for most of the movie, it just feels that the characters start acting differently for no reason. Like, there's a bit
yeah,
where the tech guy like just zones out and he's just
yeah.
sitting there doing nothing. There's a bit where the Wiccan girl starts acting weird and doesn't talk to them properly.
Well,
There's all these moments where they just start acting so out of fucking character that nothing means anything because there's no like.
what I mean, I would almost argue though that like we never really get a sense of what their characters are because like it's
Ah, that's true. Yeah.
you know what I mean, like they're very like there's nothing really defining about them, and like like I said earlier, like they're all just kind of strangers that come together.
Beyond
So
beyond the basic stereotypes, because you've
yeah,
got the goth, you've got the techie one, you've got the pregnant woman, like the
yeah,
intellectual husband type guy, and the wicked. Like they're all kind of tropey, but you don't really, yeah, you don't get a sense of who they are, so it doesn't really mean anything when they start acting weird. It just
yeah,
it feels like anything can happen. And that's
yeah.
something that people, when you're talking about sports and stuff, oh, anything can happen. That's like a positive point. But in a movie, it kind of isn't.
Yeah,
Like, stuff should surprise me because I shouldn't expect it to happen. But in this movie, it
yeah,
just got to a point where I'm like, well, anything can just happen for no reason. So why the fuck do I care?
yeah. It is really bizarre, and I think stuff that was probably supposed to be creepy or shocking like made me laugh at how bad it was. Like there was a few times where they showed this image of this like kind of creepy ghost girl that like walks
Oh, that was
backwards
so
and stuff.
stupid.
It looked so bad. Like yeah, like I can tell they probably thought like they're being super creepy with that ghost or whatever, but it was ridiculous.
It actually still baffles me. The whole because I watched these back to back, right? And
Yeah,
not, the thing that was just running through my head the entire time was just how much of like a cheesy, shitty direct-to-video '90s movie this felt.
exactly. Yeah,
Right? It just there was just no tone. There was just
yeah.
nothing. It was like play some rock music and hope that'll get you by. And
Surprised it wasn't directed by Rob Zombie. Like it
uh,
seems like his kind of
it does, doesn't it?
style.
And the first one like has such a style and tone. Like it has such
Yeah,
a unique feel, and it feels like someone had an idea, and they execute. Like there's an art to it. Even if you don't like the
yeah,
movie, and you may hate the movie, but you can't deny that there's an artistic vision going on here.
Yeah.
Whereas this one just feels like, oh, we want a sequel because the first one made money, and it just feels like this gurgitated mess of like generic stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like it would have been so easy to do, like, maybe it wouldn't have been as good as the first one, but you could have easily done like something about some people trying to also track the Blair Witch to find the people or something after they found it.
Wait, Tim. You mean like the new one that's coming out next month?
Right, exactly, yeah.
You mean like that one where the brother's
Yeah.
looking for her? I'm curious. I've not looked this up. I'm wondering if the new one's set present day, because if it's present day, then Jesus Christ, he had a big age gap if he's only still in his like 20s.
Actually, I haven't thought about that. That would be weird.
But to be fair, it might open with saying, "Oh, this is set in like, 2002." Like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever.
Um,
I'm sure we'll find
let
out.
me.
We're going to talk a little bit more about the new one at the end, because I wanted to just make some predictions not predictions, but hopes and fears and blah blah blah.
Let me ask you this, because I I was not enjoying myself when I was watching this movie, so it is possible I might have spaced out for a second or something. But was there even a book in it? The Book of Shadows? Was that even a thing? Did I miss that? The movie's called The Book of Shadows.
They had like a book of research at the start. I don't know if that counts as the Book of Shadows.
What the fuck?
Okay. You make an excellent point, Timmy. You make an excellent point. There was very little actual books and a lot of shadows, but not a lot of books.
Oh, Jesus.
That's a very strong point.
Also, might be worth noting the offensive, like, Asian tourist stereotype.
Oh yeah, at the start, because they run into this other tour group led by this rival tour guide person, and all of like his tourists there's like two Asians, and I think there's like another one who's like European or something.
Yeah.
And it feels really stereotypical, and these people all get murdered in the middle of the night. Like we find out about that the next day, and the sheriff thinks that our main group is responsible for it in some way.
Yeah. I just feel like that's another kind of like 90s trope. Like I feel like a lot of like, straight to DVD like horror movies back then would always have like that kind of like one offensive stereotype, like I don't know. But it felt like another throwback.
It's weird how the stereotypes for Asian characters like in cinema, it's not maybe so much now because we try to get away from tropes the best we can as a whole, but like it was kung fu and then tourist. Like those were the two things. Like that's the two things that an Asian actor could get cast as, like in the 90s and 80s.
Yeah, this is a strange line for them to walk.
Or maybe a scientist. They did a lot of scientists as well.
True. Yeah.
At least that one's kind of a compliment. Like you're smart. Actually, to be fair, kung fu is kind of a compliment too. Like you're athletic. You can fight.
Yeah. It's I wish I knew kung fu. Yeah. For sure.
The tourist one where they're just always smiling and taking photos, a little bit more offensive.
Yeah.
So, hey. There's very good points, Timmy, on both fronts. What else in this movie to tear apart? I'm not going to lie, after about 15 minutes, I was playing Tetris whilst watching this movie, because that was how I got through it. I got through it looking at blocks.
Yeah, this is a definite check your phone type of movie.
I mean, I will give it this. It is mercifully short.
Yeah, thank God.
It's like less than 90 minutes. It's like 80-something minutes.
Yeah.
And it feels like an abrupt ending, but, I wasn't even caring. I was like, oh, thank fuck, credits. Yes. Yeah. Here endeth the movie. Round of applause. So, no, I do not recommend Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. And funnily enough, it doesn't actually, like, even if you've not seen the second one, it doesn't matter. Like, clearly this new movie is completely ignoring it. And of course it would be ignoring it, because it's set in the same universe as the first movie, because it's about a brother looking for, like, Heather from the first movie, it's her brother who's the main character in this new one. And for that to happen, then it's not even in the same universe as the second movie. The second movie takes place supposedly in our universe, which technically they've marketed the first one as doing as well, to be fair, but you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
they're different universes, so you don't even have to care about the second movie. You can ignore it quite happily and just go straight to the new one after the first one, and you will be happy about doing that. Hopefully we'll be happy about that. Which is why I wanted to talk a little bit about the new one. Just I want to make some, not predictions per se, but some hopes and thoughts. And I never talked about the ending, but it's actually, I mean, I was going to talk about the ending of the first one and how it started a trope that I hate the most. It actually makes sense that I left it to this point, actually, because this is my biggest fear about this new Blair Witch. Because obviously this new Blair Witch is coming in a different time, because it's coming in a time where we've seen so many found footage movies and we're sick of them. Most of us are, not all of us. Some people love them, and great, sure, power to you. But a lot of us are sick of them. And my biggest fear of this movie is that it's going to end the same way that every single found footage movie ends. And it's the way that the Blair Witch project ends. And that's the person holding the camera falls down, the camera falls down, maybe something creepy will happen after while the camera's on the floor, maybe it won't, but that's the end of the movie. That's how it ends, right? Everyone dies. Yeah. No one makes it out. Most found footage movies end that way, right? There's a few that don't. Troll Hunter doesn't. Creep doesn't. You know, there's a couple that don't.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's how they end. Here's what. Now, the rest of the movie might be great, and given that it's from the guy who made You're Next, I'm expecting that it will be good.
Yeah.
But what I'm worried about with the ending is I'm worried. Now, I don't want like a full explanation. I don't want to necessarily see like the Blair Witch. But if they leave it as obscure as the first one does, if they don't give us anything new to the mythology,
yeah,
and if it ends with just everyone dying, I will be disappointed. Because to me, that is a completely uninteresting way for a new Blair Witch movie to end, because it's just the same as the first one. What I would like is for someone to survive, because that at this point would be far more interesting, because if everyone just dies, it's the same thing again. It's not only the same thing again as Blair Witch Project, it's the same thing as every other fucking found footage movie.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't really thought too much about like story specific details, but what I was kind of thinking is like so you know, like how this movie, like at first it was called The Woods, and then there's a big reveal where it's like, oh, guess what, it's the Blair Witch. I was like wondering, like, why would they like do that? Like, that's such a weird thing, because it's not like Blair Witch is a name, but it's not like, you know, super popular. Like, yeah, everyone knows it, but it's not like.
I kind of have an answer for you.
Okay, well, basically, before we get to that, though, I guess what I was thinking was, like, there probably has to be some reason, and Adam Wingard's, like, a good director. Like, we both really liked You're Next, so I'm hoping that there's a specific reason why, you know, this is the Blair Witch, and it's not just, like, let's just capitalize on a name and do, you know, a new version of it. Like, I hope there's something specific that's, like, you know, I want to do something new with this property, with found footage. I don't know. I guess that's what I kind of have hope for.
I think the real answer, Timmy, for the whole secret name, you know, then boom, reveal it's Blair Witch. I think it's really just about buzz, because that gets people talking. Like, the fact that they kept it secret and then they do a big reveal is interesting. It's the same thing, and it's something we've seen a couple of times in video games. Silent Hills, Resident Evil 7. Where they pretended to be another game. Resident Evil 7 pretended to be a game called The Kitchen for a year. People were playing that game a year before they revealed what it was.
Oh.
So then you have that big moment where you reveal what it actually is, and everyone goes, oh shit, this is something really interesting, because you kept this from us. Yeah. And that's impressive in this day and age. And I think it's a callback as well to the way the original was marketed, because the original had that whole... this is real viral marketing kind of thing where they tried to build it. They put up missing posters for the cast. In fact, tidbit, the actress who played Heather, her mother got condolence cards after the movie came out, because they thought she was actually like missing or dead. So
I guess I can definitely see that. That's a very good point. I guess more in general, I was thinking though, like just why make a Blair Witch movie, you know, like in this day and age.
Oh no, like.
Know?
I think
You know what I
you're.
mean? Like,
I think you're wrong that that's why they had the hidden title, but I don't think you're
what?
wrong.
No, that's not. I'm not saying.
Well,
Not
no, no, no. Let me see what I'm saying.
okay.
I think you're right that, or at least in hoping that the reason why we even have this is because he had an idea, or
Yeah,
someone had an idea. Oh, wait, we can do this with Blair Witch. Like, rather than, oh, let's just capitalize off a name.
yeah.
Um, but
I
what?
guess that's basically what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't think that's why they kept the title secret. I think that was just to.
Well, the title thing. I wasn't trying to make any points about that. I shouldn't have mentioned that. I was just. Uh, that like wasn't really the point I was trying to make. I think you're absolutely right about the title.
Do you know what the worst part about me schooling you now twice in one episode, Tim, is?
And you didn't do that, but sure, what?
I did, but I know that next week you're just going to be like, "Well, I was only at 50% because I was under the weather." Like, that's the excuse. That's the excuse you're going to give me. So, you know.
Well, you can perceive the world one way, I guess.
As opposed to the Tim way where everyone's a goat and there's pizza raining from the sky.
Ah, that sounds like Valhalla to me.
Dear. Yeah, so that's my sort of worry hope for the new one, is I hope that by the end of the movie I feel like I've learned something new about the myth of Blair Witch. I don't necessarily want to see her, I just want to feel like they've expanded upon it in some way.
I think like right now, I kind of, Jesus, that truck again. Like the way I kind of think of the Blair Witch now, as like I don't really think of it as a franchise. I guess because I ignore the second one, and the first movie is just kind of its own standalone thing. So I don't know if they're trying to make it a franchise or something, but I hope that this movie, like you were saying, it does do something different and there's something new about it. We come away with it with something new and unexpected, and then I don't know, maybe it does make it more of a name,
Well,
and more of a.
I suppose that's a good point. My other fear, actually, outside of the movie itself, is that if this is a huge hit, that then the studio says, right, it's time to start churning these out every year, like Paranormal Activity.
Paranormal Activity, yeah.
And they could very well do that. So
Yeah, I don't want that, but I wouldn't be opposed to, like, let's say it does do well and they do another one, not like the next year, but maybe they take some time, they get another good director, another good idea for it. I would definitely be down for that to become a franchise. But I mean, I guess like everything, of course. So as long as it's done right and is good.
I'm going to save my opinion on that until after I've seen this one.
Right. Well,
because
yeah, obviously if it's.
Well, no, it's not. It's not even about the quality. It's just about even if it's good, even if you can tell me right now and guarantee me, no, it's good. You're going to come out liking this movie or loving this movie. I still want to actually see what the plot details are before I actually tell you if I want or if I'd be okay with more. Just
fair, yeah, that's fair, yeah.
I will say this, and I think they should really note this. Part of the reason why this is exciting, part of the reason why there's so much hype now about the new Blair Witch, is not just because they hid the title, which was. And part of the reason why hiding the title and then revealing it worked the way it did was because it has been so long since the last time they had a Blair Witch movie. That's part of what makes this so special, is that it's been this long. There's been enough time that it's like went into the ether and it's like not forgotten, but like it's not a thing that's constantly been shoved in our faces. That's why it's exciting when the name comes up and we see, oh shit, it's a Blair Witch. Like,
yeah.
So. The last time a Blair Witch movie came out, I wasn't even in high school yet.
Oh.
A long time ago. So, here's hoping for a good movie. And of course, we will be discussing that in a few weeks' time when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can look forward to that.
Yeah.
What was that noise, Tim?
I don't know. You just got like really serious for a second. I don't know.
Well, I mean, don't know.
We'll be seeing the movie in a few weeks. Yeah, I know. I'm excited for it.
This will forever go down in history as the episode where Peter schooled Tim twice.
We'll let the fans decide.
I feel like I know.
See, the problem is like I say stuff and then you misinterpret and then like you
Oh,
just you correct your own like misinterpretation so that you act like you're all smart and stuff when it's like, well, no, you didn't understand the thing I said first of all, so that makes you way dumber than me.
don't blame me for you not being able to succinctly get your point across. Also, you are the guy who named himself the Professor. I'll need to
Um,
find that video footage. Do you know what? I could actually probably put that footage on the end of the show at some point if I can find it, because it was on Facebook. The drunken clip where Tim claims to be a professor to my novice. I'll need to find
I,
that.
I'm not saying that there isn't some things that you're not smarter than me at, but when it comes to horror movies, it is night and day between us.
Night and day, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Um, well, I believe that'll take us to ratings. We have to do the biscuits out of 10 before we say goodbye. So, ratings for the Blair Witch Project and Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows. Oh, sorry,
Uh,
Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. I should say it the right way around. I do apologise.
all right. I feel like sometimes I get chatty during the race, but I'm gonna speed through this because I really have to go to the bathroom. But uh, yeah, first one, I'll give a solid 7. I was kind of teetering between like 6.5 and a 7. I think my enjoyment level was more of like a 6.5, but I'm gonna bump it up a little bit just because of the what it was doing was like original and you know something that really hadn't been done at that point in time. It was something new and fresh at that time. So I'll definitely give it credit for trying something different. And then second one, I'm just gonna give like a straight up 3.
Okay. Okay.
It sucked.
It did. Indeed, it sucked balls, I believe the kids say. For me, see, this is tough. I am dancing between a whole number and a 0.5 here. So, you know what? I'm going to give credit where credit's due. 9 out of 10 for the first one.
Wow. Oof, I was not expecting that. I was thinking like maybe in a 7.5 or an 8, but whew, that was higher.
There's a sense of dread in the tone and the edginess of that movie that I very rarely find, and for that I think it deserves something. Almost reminds me of, this wasn't even documentary style, but the way it felt visually reminded me a lot of something like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which also has a very uneasy feeling to it the whole time.
Yeah.
Um, and no, I liked it a lot more this time compared to the first time. So 9 out of 10. I was tempted to give it an 8.5, but I thought, you know what? No, I'm committing.
Okay, man. Very interesting.
Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, 2 out of 10.
Wow.
Garbage.
That's well deserved. Yeah.
Garbage.
So,
So that was a plummet of 7 points between the first and second movie.
oof.
For me. So there you go. That was that. So I guess it's time to fill you in and stuff that's coming up and give you plugs and things and tell us where you can find us. You can find us on Twitter, of course, at mild_fuzz. You can also let us know what you thought of the movie down below in the comments if you're on the YouTubes. You can find me on Twitter at Wibble89. I had to think about that. At Wibble89, not Mewibble89. You can find Tim on Twitter at Tim Vergulish. Mm-hmm. You can, of course, email us, mailedfuzz@gmail.com. Check out the other stuff we do. Me and Matt do the 1.21 gigawatts movie show. We talk about regular, non-horror movies on a weekly basis. You can also check out the weekly TV reviews on Almost Cancelled, and we do a DC Comics podcast called Comics from the Multiverse, where we talk about all the DC books every week. So check all that stuff out. Also, there may be new things on the horizon, specifically for YouTube. On the movie channel, there's thoughts and feelings about possible new additions to that channel in terms of content, so look forward to that. And of course, as obviously we'll be doing Blair Witch in a few weeks' time. Also coming up in a few weeks' time is Don't Breathe. We're getting into that busier.
You son of a bitch! You're just drawing these out because you know I have to go to the bathroom. You fucking asshole!
That is so not what's happening right now, Tim.
You're plugging stuff that doesn't even exist yet, and that we've already talked about at the beginning of the show.
Hey, plugging that we're doing Don't Breathe is a valid thing to plug. That's coming up.
All right, but yeah,
that.
you're plugging shows that don't even have titles yet, and fucking a movie that we already mentioned that we're gonna see in a few weeks. And...
Oh dear.
Jesus Christ.
Also, check out our friends at Ronan's Reviews. They do written content. There'll be a link in the description. They do movies and albums and concerts and stuff, so check them out. They're friends of ours. And is there anything else that I can plug? Just to draw this out one little bit. You you can find me on Instagram if you want to do that.
One does. You son of a bitch.
Oh, no, this is a genuine one. You can come and check out join the Mailed Fuzz Facebook group. If you type Mailed Fuzz into the Facebook search, come and join and chat with us about movies, TV shows, comic books, video games. We talk about all that stuff in there. It's a good community, so you can join that if you want. And is there anything else that I can possibly think of to draw this out just a few more minutes?
If I get a urinary tract infection, I'm blaming you.
Tim, I want to talk about waterfalls just before we wrap up.
What the fuck are you saying?
Flowing water. Just imagine the sink. You know, the water's flowing nice and slow. Psst.
Your mind games won't work on me.
If I had something to pour this into, Tim, I'd be pouring the water in the mic right now. Right now.
I'm about to fucking fly all the way to Ireland and pour it right down your face.
Excuse me? Ireland? Tim, are we confused as to where I'm from?
I know where you're from. 101 Leprechaun Lane.
Oh dear. Oh, if you wanted this to be over soon, Tim, you've just shot yourself in the foot.
I mean, in 5 seconds, I'm just going to leave.
For anyone who might actually think I'm from Ireland, I'm from Scotland. And Timothy knows that. He's just trying to be a little bitch and get back at me for making him wait to pee. This has been Screams After Midnight. Thank you very much for watching and or listening. Keep watching horror movies. And whatever you do, don't end this podcast in the dark when Tim needs to go pee. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.